Let's begin with number 1 here. The Apostles' Creed contains, in brief, all that a Catholic must know and believe. Like I said before, it's called in Latin the symbolum, or distinguishing mark, because in early days, recital of it was the means by which, or the mark by which, a man was recognized as a Christian. No one was admitted to the presence of the Holy Mass unless he knew it by heart. Moving on. So the Apostles' Creed is also called so because it originated with the apostles. Like I said before, the apostles, before they separated from one another, established a certain and fixed rule of their teaching so that it might be the same in all the different countries where they preached. Yet it is only the outlines of the creed that date from the apostles themselves. Between their time and the year 600, new clauses were added in order to meet various heresies, right? So for example, the words creator of heaven and earth, right? So instead of I believe in God the Father Almighty, then creator of heaven and earth. That's how it goes now. But they didn't say that before. They used to say, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus. I believe in God, the Father Almighty, creator of heaven and earth. Why? Because at the time, there was a heresy called Manichaeanism, where they believed that the world, earthly, all physical creation was evil, and that it was only pure spirit that's good. And that goes completely against Christian thought, because if you believe in the incarnation, you believe that material existence is divine, so much so that God embodied a human body, right? And so anyway, that was a heresy at the time. They were saying that, everything of the flesh is evil, and they had to squash that. Also, this is important, and I'm gonna do a little, if you see me highlight in blue, I'm gonna share something with you. I have a resource for you. The word Catholic was added to distinguish the church from the other sects around it. So if you go back, the word Catholic, if you notice down at the bottom, the second line that's in bold, I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Holy Catholic Church. You might, if you're not Catholic, you might be like, oh, that's not fair. Why did they add that? Right? Well, because there was only one real church back then, too. Or at least still only is. But they had to add that word it was the late part of the first century in order to distinguish themselves from the heretical sects that were popping up all around them. And so I've got a cool little video here. It sort of speaks to when and why the word Catholic was adopted. And so let's begin with that.
What's the difference between Catholic and someone who just calls themselves Christian? Do Catholics believe everything they do, but not vice versa?
The original form of Christians were Catholics. The term Catholic dates from the latter part of the very first century. It was in common use at the beginning of the second century. People came up with the term because they needed a way to distinguish the church that Jesus founded from local breakaway groups, because there were back then local breakaway groups that were following a particular leader or that were common in a particular area. And so they needed a term for just the universal church that Jesus founded, not one of these local groups. And in Greek, the term Catholic means universal. So that is why they called it the Catholic Church, because it was the universal church that Jesus had founded. Different local groups, and this includes the ones that started after the Protestant Reformation in the 1500s, will share different elements of the Christian faith in its original form. For example, in the Protestant community, they typically believe in the Trinity, which is great. They believe Jesus is the Son of God, which is great. They believe the Holy Spirit is God, which is great. They believe Mary gave birth to Jesus as a virgin, which is great. They do believe many of the same elements of the Christian faith that have always been there, but not all. And which ones they've changed their views on will depend based on which group you're talking about. Here in America, America is a historically Protestant majority country, and so most of the people here in America who say I'm a Christian, they mean I'm a Protestant Christian. But Christian is a term that applies to all of the followers of Jesus, and Catholics happen to be the original form of Christian.
Wanted to share that with you from a different point of view. I'd like to bring on experts, and that's Jimmy Akin. He is a theologian and a brilliant Catholic. You can tell by how cool and calm and collected he speaks. I'm a fiery dude, but that guy is just so a matter of fact, so damn smart. It's called Catholic Answers on YouTube, Instagram, whatever case may be. And the reason why, I think it's important also for me to hear guys like that speak and then to bring them on is because there's so many misunderstandings about the Catholic faith, and it's intellectual laziness to just spit off these things that you hear others say about, various things they misunderstand. Like, for example, the Mass. I was talking about the Mass before. A lot of people don't understand the Mass. And so they find ways to denigrate it, and they'll say something mean about it simply because you're ignorant. You just actually don't know what it's all about, because when you protest, you get rid of tradition, and that's what all protesting is. And so, unfortunately, we're several generations, 6, 7, 8 generations away from the giant protests which brought us Protestantism. And so, even Catholics today don't really even understand their own faith. The whole world has been secularized as a means. Anyway, so that word Catholic comes from the fact that they had to distinguish themselves from the heretical sects that were popping up all over the place. And today, of course, it stands.